mentioned his name and he appears. Your magic. Okay, welcome. Seeing quorum, the chair opens up the Mashpee Planning Board meeting of Wednesday, January 17th, 2018, here at Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road, Mashpee, Massachusetts. I'd like to welcome everybody and let everybody know that we're being recorded and videographed. And if you have an opportunity to address the board, please do so at the microphone, state your name and then your business. I'd like to invite everybody to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is approval of minutes from December 16th, 2017. So I just wanted to note that I did get the names of the people who signed in that evening from Mashpee Commons, and I sent that to you electronically today. So if you could add those, and that would be my only amendment, unless there's somebody else that has another amendment.
And that's for December 6th, not
December 6th, that was the day that Mashpee Commons came in and did a visioning session. So if there's no other amendments, I'd accept a motion to accept as amended.
Make motion as amended,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a public hearing in 5 minutes. I'm going to skip ahead to the special permit Knockabout Beer Company. Tom Fudala called me this evening, so I'll give you all an update. Knockabout Beer Company has submitted an insurance bond in the form of their performance bond in the form of an insurance bond, which I believe is allowed by our rules and regs. It's not encouraged because they typically expire after X amount of years. And so the planning department really doesn't like them because if they expire and nobody knows, then the town can't cover the bond. Right. So before Tom left, because he retired on January 5th, he sent the form of the insurance bond to town council. So town council is reviewing it, and Maria will follow up with town council, and we'll put that on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Just for information, I know that you can make those bonds automatically renewable,
Okay.
so that they don't necessarily expire without anybody's knowledge.
Okay.
You can also insert in there that you want to be notified before the expiration date, 30 days ahead of time, so that you'll be sure and get it renewed. But there are means by which you can insert that in, and the other thing would be to make sure that Mashpee is the beneficiary of the amount of the bond.
The town of Mashpee. Okay.
Right, so in case you have to actually go after the bond, it will come to you.
So in your correspondence to town council, if you could add those three things. All right. And we have a few minutes. Do you want to do the billing from Charlie?
Sure.
So this is for $675 for the services of the month of December. And is that the only?
There was no Southport bill for December.
Okay.
Make a motion we pay Charlie Rice $675 for the month of December.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Tom explained to me that the Southport bills, which is not this bill,
Yeah.
they're sent over to Southport.
We should
Okay. He gave me all his notes. then we don't pay that until the money comes, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay. And how quickly can you do the discussion of the design of Country Club Lane?
Maybe put them in, maybe put the prices.
Yes, I will.
On Country Club Lane, I'm still awaiting a plan from the engineer for Ken Masters that will show both sides of Old Barnstable Road, edge of pavement, as well as the layout lines, the guardrail that's on that side, and hopefully the tree line that's on the side, on the right as you come from Route 151 toward the Country Club,
Yeah.
in hopes that we'll be able to devise a plan to cut back that tree line for better sight distance and get a good location for the entrance. I had an email from Catherine Laurent today asking me about that also, and I simply relayed that information to her. And as soon as I get it, then we can put it on the agenda again for further discussion.
Well, they have to put up a wall, some retaining wall to cut some of the tree, kind of steep there, isn't it?
Well, it depends on how far back you can cut it, Dennis. One of the things we don't know, and which I'm hoping to find out by the plan that he does, is whether or not any of that vegetation is beyond the layout line.
All right.
Anything that's within the layout line, Catherine would have the authority to have trimmed back so that we could get better sight. If you have to go further than that, it might have to be negotiated with the country club.
All right, but I was just scared around if it heavy rains, if it was too steep and it be planted.
It may be just a matter of trimming branches, Dennis. It might not be that you have to cut the whole tree, but until we know where those limits are, we won't know, yeah.
So cutting the vegetation back kind of is a newer thing that you?
No, well, it's one that we've been talking about for some time, but we just had no basis for which to determine how much would have to be cut. And at the last discussion I had with the engineer, he was going to go out and get that added information that we talked about.
Yeah, I brought that up a while back.
Okay.
That's why we left that
Yeah.
there. The trees
Yeah.
are really,
You can't see,
yeah.
right?
Did we discuss maybe some signage on that road as you, additional signage?
I think we did talk about signage there also, yeah.
I mean, sometimes too much signage.
Yeah, certainly signage with regard to intersection ahead, appropriate stop signs on Country Club Lane coming out, the location of a right turn lane for people coming out of the Country Club wanting to go right toward 151. That's all a part of the design of the intersection of where the islands would go. So it's still all up in the air.
How about a reduced speed on the road?
It's already 20 miles.
Yeah, I don't know what it is now, but
Is it 15?
It's 15 advised, it's still 30.
The thing is, though, when you come down
The
that
yellow
hill,
sign is only advised.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's dangerous.
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I try to go 15 or sometimes, when they go
You go
25, you
around
don't
and
realize it, you know.
It's going to be tough. That's why it takes real close looking at to make sure it's safe.
Well, we'll just keep it on the agenda. And, you know, we might have to do some public service announcements
Yeah.
to make sure everybody knows. Okay, so, thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have a public hearing. It's a street name public hearing for the approval of the name of an unnamed private subdivision street at 950 Falmouth Road. What I do is I start by reading in the public hearing notice. Mashpee Planning Board Public Hearing Notice, under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 85, Sections 3A and 3B, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 17th, 2018, at 7:10 p.m. at the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, to establish the name of an unnamed private subdivision street at 950 Falmouth Road, which serves as access to South Cape Resorts condominium and a number of town-owned parcels, sometimes referred to as Crossroad, to become Copper Street. Or is it Cooper? Sorry. Cooper Street. Submitted by Mary E. Wagon Chair, Mashpee Planning Board. It was published Friday, December 29th, 2017, and Friday, January 5th, 2018. So, I'm going to recognize Clay has come from our GIS department to give us a summary of the project. on the name change to Cooper.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody should have a copy of this in their folders that depicts the 3 parcels in question. They're all addressed as 950 Falmouth Road because they were previously owned by South Station Village. When they became town property and then subsequently part of a 40B project, came to light that the road needed to have a name in order to be able to address the parcels in question. So we went through the list of failed domains for the address working group, and they recommended Cooper Street be the new name for the current crossroad, which exists also in New Seabury, so it would create a conflict. So tonight I'm asking the board to approve the name Cooper Street for the area depicted in the red.
So, no other parcels are being affected by this name? Okay. So Rob, you have any questions?
No.
David? Dennis?
No, that's,
Joe?
I guess the only question I would have is, what's the width of it?
Lots of whatever. I only deal with the name of it.
Well, you're only dealing with the name.
I'm really here for that. The design of it would be whoever develops the property. I don't imagine it's going to be any different than what it already is.
Yeah. Okay, I have no questions.
So those are 3 parcels of town-owned land,
Correct.
right? I believe they've been earmarked by the Board of Selectmen for the development of affordable housing.
Oh,
That's why I was talking about chapter 40B.
okay.
And I only know that because I went to an affordable housing training, and this was the test site. So I think there's been a series, or there will be a series of RFPs about this. Do you have any comments?
No, fine with me.
Are there any comments from the public? Okay. I'd accept a motion to close the public hearing. Oh. Charlie, do you have any comments?
No.
I'm sorry.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now,
We're going to send this to Debbie
now we have to vote.
to accept the change.
Do we,
I make a motion is, we accept
if
the,
for some reason your mic isn't working, you might want to bring it. Do we, you know what, do we vote to recommend, or do we vote to change?
Are we changing?
Did
yeah,
you
we
actually vote to change it?
it.
We vote to change it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Make a motion, we change Crossroad to become the new route, Cooper Road. Cooper Street, excuse me.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
There is, I saw it an hour ago.
So I just have one question there.
Yes,
So, you know, they have a street committee,
who does?
the town. I mean, they, like,
In Mashpee?
yeah, they have a, you know, to make sure that there's no 2 names and,
Yeah, there's an address working group.
yeah, so they already looked, they said this was right.
So the town manager, the assistant town manager, the assessor, Tom Fagala at the time.
All right.
All part of that group, and then.
They made sure there was no other street but that.
Right.
Okay, that's,
So there is a certificate of action that has to be completed, signed by me, and submitted to the town clerk. And you know the packet, the planning board public hearing notification process? It's the last page, and it has the form of the certificate of action.
that has to be notarized.
No, but one of us has to sign it.
So you just signed it.
Yeah, I can sign it.
No, because it's
But if I
notarized.
can't get, what's your time frame on this?
We're not in the building yet, so there's not really a time crunch for it.
So do you mind if Maria brings it to our next meeting and I sign it then?
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry, last page of what packet?
The planning board public hearing notification procedures.
Okay.
So Tom Kodala, printed everything out for Maria and myself. A lot to look through.
Yeah, still for me, we got to.
So I think that's great. So that's it. Thank
All right,
you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. There might be a little bit more about, you give it to the town clerk and what happens then, but I think you can just deal with that internally once I sign it for you. All right, next thing. Definitive subdivision plan. Applicant is Evergreen Energy LLC. Location is 588 Main Street, Assessors Map 19, Block 10. The request is a signature of definitive subdivision plan for a 12-lot industrial commercial subdivision. It was approved November 15th, 2017. So, these are my notes, so I recognize the project proponent.
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a civil engineer and land surveyor. I work for Holmes McGrath. We prepared the plan. Would the planning board like a quick introduction to the results of the well testing?
Yeah,
I don't know if you have copies of it in your package, but if anybody needs a copy, I have one with me. The bottom line is, we found on the ground that there were wells that were previously set for a previous project. But nobody had any well data. We did find that there was a log of the cross-section of the wells, and we obtained that from Desmond Wellgarter. So then we went out and grabbed samples of the water that was in the wells. And the bottom line is it's very good water quality, as you would expect, since there's nothing really to the north of it. If you think about you're under pressure to remove nitrogen from the estuaries, and the bottom line is there were two of the wells had no detected nitrate or nitrite, and the other one was 0.2 parts per million, and the other one was 0.9. Background should be around 1, so this is equivalent of basically there's very little going on upstream. And everything else was what you would expect on Cape Cod in this kind of water, in this kind of geology and setting. So the bottom line is the water quality is very good at that location. And the Board of Health did issue a memorandum saying they accepted the water quality report. Previously, the owners did sign a road covenant, so I think the only thing left to do is to have the Mylar signed.
yeah. That's why
Okay,
I-
so Tom wanted me to pull out the covenant.
On these wells, after you build them, you're gonna build, you still take tests?
Yes,
Huh?
yes.
For how long is it everlasting?
I don't remember, but
So you,
and then the zoning bylaw is a requirement,
Right.
and the Board of Health regulations is a requirement.
I'm just, so you own the property now?
No, I'm just a consultant.
Oh, so the people that own the property, they're the ones that have to, okay.
To remind you what happens next is, this was previously approved by the Cape Cod Commission.
Right.
This is large enough that it still has to go through the Cape Cod Commission, so there's gonna be a modification of the
Tom
DRI.
wanted me to
Alright.
make sure with you that the covenant was okay,
So,
Okay.
and I think it is. So here's the covenant. My instructions were to make sure it was on the standard form, which it is, and just make sure it's references these plans,
The
which are.
attorney's prepared to get covenant, so using the town, yeah.
get it. It says the plans are dated August 14th, 2017.
They've been revised.
They were revised as of November 20th, I think, was the last date that I remember, Mike. The 20th and the 16th on the construction plans.
I have November 20th as the latest review.
Yeah.
Who signed this? The owner?
Yeah, the owner signed it on the 15th of November, and this would be prior to the last change in the plan, too, so I think it needs to be updated.
We need to update the covenant,
All right,
and we can't sign the plans.
without the update.
But
Yeah.
he said to leave everything with Maria. How many signatures do we need on the plans? Is it just me?
No, it's a definitive plan, so you need the majority of the board.
Well, like I said, the next step is for us to go to commission, so, the bottom line is, when do you meet again?
All right, so let's use the mics. Sorry. We had a little huddle.
I am the mic.
All right, so our covenant needs to be updated, and we can't sign the plans until the covenant is finalized.
Right.
So,
When do you meet again?
2 weeks. Right up.
First Wednesday in February, whenever that is,
Yeah.
whatever the date is.
Well, it's,
I'm sorry, what is it?
February 7th.
February 7th.
I could come into the town hall.
We all have to sign them,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
the bottom line is we'll just continue it to
Yeah.
February 7th, because that's not a suitable covenant.
All right, so you're gonna get us a covenant that references the latest plans.
Yes.
Now, you were talking about the Cape Cod Commission?
No, what happens is, and this has been worked out with the commission, is
Okay.
that once we have your approval,
Okay,
then we go forward it, and then get them to modify their approval to agree with your approval.
All right.
but we don't have to wait on the covenant for that.
No, we have to wait, because we can't go
Okay.
without a sign.
You'll recall that the certificate of approval that went to the town clerk had 4 stipulations on it. I did look at the first 3, which had to do with some plan corrections that Mike made, and that's the reason why the plan is dated November 20th.
Okay,
And then the last thing was the report on the wells, which you now have, and which appear to be satisfactory. So you might want to just take a vote on the fact that you've received the well report and that it meets the conditions of the approval. And then that satisfies all the conditions for allowing the plan to be recorded along with the covenant once it's updated.
Yeah, sounds good. What is that?
you wanna make that motion?
Okay, let me see. So we're giving them 1, 2, 3?
So you can make a motion that the planning board finds that the 4 conditions listed in the notice of decision have been
Okay.
satisfied.
I make a motion, the planning board finds the 4 conditions of the notification were satisfied to the planning board.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
You got
And
that
then,
good,
all right,
right?
so our next step is, We're gonna continue it.
Corrected covenant on February 6th.
And then we'll sign it.
and then we'll sign
Yeah.
everything. And I even brought new pens.
Yeah.
I want to be sure, too, that the planning board doesn't have to sign the covenant. I don't remember.
I don't think we do.
That may be the case, I just don't remember.
Okay, I will double check.
There's no place for you to sign on these 2 documents, so
Yeah.
it may be that you don't have to, I just don't remember.
Someone from my firm will be here on February 6th.
So, all right,
Okay.
so can I just go over all my notes with
Sure.
you? Okay. Okay. So your paper copies, you're supposed to give us 5 paper copies.
Once it's signed.
One
For them to
for
sign
us
also.
to sign.
Oh,
Yeah,
So
you gotta
you have a
sign.
Mylar, plus you bring in 5 paper copies,
okay.
And
and
that goes to the,
2 to the planning board, 1 to your engineer, you,
Yeah.
building department, and then Charlie.
Oh, I'm glad you told me that, because I only brought 1 copy.
Okay, and then, you have to have the clerk's signature on it, saying that the appeal period is done.
Right.
All right.
And I think you could do that before our meeting.
You should.
Yeah,
All right.
so that's something you can work with Maria on. We have to, there's 2 dates on the plan, one's approved and one's endorsed, and those are different dates. And that he said the road release and the 3 originals get recorded at the registry of deeds.
The road release is the covenant.
Oh, all right, so the covenant and the plan gets,
Have to be
recorded
recorded
together.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
those are my notes.
All right.
I think we're gonna,
Do you need a copy of that old one, Mike?
because
Yes,
there's 2 in the
because I
file.
never saw it.
Okay. There's still one,
Yeah, there's
there's
2
still
in
one
the
in the file, so I'm just
Okay.
getting you one,
All right,
There's a copy in the file you read.
yeah.
an old one.
All right, so we'll
Okay.
leave that on the agenda, and we'll see you the first Wednesday in February.
You'll see something, I'll be in Arizona.
Oh, nice. Nice. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we're down to old business. Okay. Chairman's report. So I need some input from especially Dennis and Joe, because according to the town manager, okay, the selected candidate for town planner was offered the job. He took the job and followed up. So they do not have any other candidate lined up to offer a position. They want to know if he wants to know if he should look at the other candidates or re-advertise.
Re-advertise. Because,
Well, I got a phone call today from, oh,
yeah, Alvin said,
she's the secretary?
no, she's, you know, where you go for job, you know, I can't think of the
Oh,
title.
personnel.
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 Oh, okay.
I couldn't think of it.
And she
Senior
asked
age.
me if I was be available Friday at 10 o'clock.
I didn't go in my answer machine when I got home.
So you're meeting again?
I'm sure I got no
Then-
trouble.
To discuss
Okay.
that question, I guess.
So I think that if, you know, those other candidates you didn't feel were qualified, let's re-advertise.
Yeah, I think probably re-advertise.
Um,
There might have been one.
One, the end one, but not really.
Yeah.
I think
One of them
that.
got here by looking at the sun.
Hmm?
Remember? She said, I got him following
Oh,
the
yeah,
sun.
yeah.
She, I don't know where she lives. She said, yeah, I was watching the sun. I knew how to go to find Mashpee. And that was enough for me.
Okay.
I mean, for what it's worth, I have put in an application.
Huh?
It's not reviewed, so.
Getting the job.
Yeah, so when I said, Dave could have been here, so
I'm just saying.
you could have said, I paid the
I
sun.
did ask David
I was
to
asked, so
apply.
they did.
I did, because, you know, I didn't want them to say, oh, nobody applied.
Yeah.
So, and I did think David could do it, because he's a brilliant person. But, anyhow, if they do, my advice is if they do have to hire somebody temporarily, we do have consultant fees already set in town.
Yeah.
If they could just keep in line with those.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Other professionals that are in town are paid a certain amount. If they're struggling with how much to offer somebody, just look at what other people get,
yeah.
you know.
Well, they seemed, everybody that was there, what they were asking for was in the range.
Okay. No, I mean like a temporary consultant.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Well, consultant fees, yeah, they're a little higher.
Yeah, well,
But that's,
But in the long run, they're not, no benefits, no nothing.
oh, yeah.
yeah.
It's just a straight fee.
Like, I don't know if there's any recently retired town planner that would.
Yeah.
Sometimes people who live in other towns or work for other towns might fill in.
It'd be nice to get somebody from the Cape or knows the Cape, you know.
Yeah.
That's good. That was my main question.
But anyhow, all right, so I think that's it from my report.
Mary, can I just jump in
Yes.
here for a second? Maria and I, every once in a while, we email back and forth. If she has a question, or if I can help her out, I'd be more than happy to do it. But in the absence of somebody who is actually working for the town, I'm a consultant to you.
Right.
So I would prefer, or would like to see that when we have that conversation, that you be included, Mary?
Yeah.
So that somebody from the board is
Yeah.
aware of the question you may have, and hopefully
Yeah.
I will answer the question in the proper way.
Yeah.
But in case I don't, you can jump in on
Yeah.
it and correct
I
me.
think, I
Okay.
think we got closer and closer to that as the weeks went on. We were starting to all
Yeah.
kind of, and also, because your email and my email are not official emails for the town, I've been CCing town planner at mashpeemass.gov. There's a department email.
Okay,
So if anybody emails me, because I used to always put Tom on the CC and he would
Yeah.
because you have to retain emails for 2 years. So we set it up. Maria was very helpful. We got an email. It's townplanner@mashpeemass.gov. Put that in the CC. That way IT, they have that backed up. We have that on file. It's retained for 2 years.
Okay.
Will that email also get minutes and notices? Because then we'll see the distribution with that on there, and it'll be like, who's that? Oh, they have a town planner. Oh, no, but it's a file where everything will eventually wind up for 2 years.
I think it's okay to put it on everything, just until we have a
Planner.
town planner, yeah. And you never know, that might end up being their official,
Record. I don't think it hurts.
so, that sound good? I think it's okay. Maybe we should. You're right, you bring up that whole thing that, I think Tom talked so much about his retirement that I think most engineers know that he was planning on retiring.
Oh, yeah, no, just to, if nobody gets the minutes, who's gonna keep the record?
Well, I get them.
Well, yeah, you get them, but so you're obligated to keep them for 2 years?
Town clerk's
Is that-
Yeah,
town
they-
clerk.
there's town clerk, town clerk is fine.
And is anybody, I mean, I know I'm gonna be CCing stuff to that email, is there anybody gonna be watching that email?
Me?
Okay, good. So nothing, if somebody,
Okay.
I know, so if somebody emails the town, finds that email and emails that sends, you'll see it, okay.
So I can't send no more love letters to you?
Okay, so Greenway, so, let me think of the date.
We have minutes here, so-
The 10th, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 10th. January 10th.
Oh, is that the,
5:30, that was the meeting.
Okay.
It was the 12th.
So,
Oh, I missed it.
our working subcommittee on the Quashnet River Footbridge, we had our first meeting on January 10th. I don't have my minutes with me. I would say there was about 7 people there. Tom Ferranti,
Yeah, so,
Ron, you were there, right?
Yep.
David, Tom Fudalo was there.
yep.
Michael Talbot from the Environmental Oversight Committee.
Mhm.
I was there.
And the CPC guy.
Douglas, he's from the refuge.
Oh.
He
oh,
came
oh,
the day of the CPC meeting.
Okay.
Douglas, is it Douglas Reynolds? Excuse me, Doug. He came representing the refuge.
Okay,
And-
I thought he was
Yeah.
from the CPC.
And Tom Fidel is gonna be, also representing the Mashpee Wildlife Refuge, because he's on their board. So we had a good meeting. Michael Talbot and I had some things to do, including having a phone call with Kathleen Laurent to get like a download of everything she worked with the engineer on. We do want to push forward with the previous site that we picked, where the dike, the materials of the dike had fallen. They think that's a better approach, it's beautiful there, it's a better site, and it'll be a shorter bridge. We also looked at plans that are posted on the U.S. Forestry
Forest
Department.
Service, yeah.
And yes, made out of wood. So, we're thinking of a huge downscale. I was somewhere where there was a huge, bridge, and I thought of taking a picture and sending it, to everybody saying, this is not what we want, like, the bridge is getting so big, I think it's gonna be out of scale
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
small.
it should be a small, intimate.
Small, intimate thing, but we will have to rely on, volunteers to come and help us. Anything else?
Are you considering at all doing any pre-construction, just clean up of both approaches, so that you've got a better idea as to what the connections are gonna look like and what's gonna be needed to put the proper foundations in place?
Yeah,
No,
just
is
to work on
that
it.
dike, if the dike on, say, the high school side could be cleaned up,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then the approach on the other one, which is sort of a curvilinear approach to it, if those areas could be cleaned out ahead of time,
Yeah.
you'd have a much better idea as to
Yeah,
what you could do.
And it would make actually constructing the bridge easier.
Much easier,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea. Mike Talbot has contacted a teacher at the high school, some type of science teacher,
An environmental teacher.
and he's
They're
excited about having a path into the woods,
Oh, good.
and that they can
Go in there and do studies
and
with
do
that.
stuff. So that was their call on
Yeah.
having a path
Yeah.
from the high school to the bridge.
You ever walk on the Mashpee River Woodlands? There's a bridge there, right off, when you come off of 28. But,
His name is Tom Hoppenstadt.
Oh, thank you.
but we built that, a bunch of us, lugging the lumber down, and it goes over the stream. And then we had like 10 truckloads of gravel that we put down because it was soft and a mesh, and it took us like the whole summer. But I did a lot of building. I built that, with the people helping, so we could do that there too.
Yeah.
We're gonna meet the hour before, whenever the Environmental Oversight Committee meets, we're gonna meet the hour before.
Yeah, 5:30.
Maybe we should start at 5, I didn't think an hour, that was pretty tight for Michael, but then Michael Talbot would be in meetings like for hours, but, we're gonna meet right before the Environmental Oversight Committee, so that, one less trip out.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna continue to post it because we might be in their quorum,
Mhm.
right? And we are looking for somebody from the tribe, I don't know if, David, you wanna add that to your busy schedule? If there's, we were talking about Chucky Green.
Mhm.
Chucky Green, I think, would be.
Yeah, I'd be better.
Yeah,
He's a
so
guy,
would you like to ask him if you'd like to join it? So
I
it's
just
the
saw him the other
Quashnet River Footbridge.
What about the Volk schools?
Yes, that's on my list of things to do,
Okay,
is
because
to
even
call
if they can
them.
make up the pieces, I mean, if we
Yeah.
prefab it,
I've talked to them in the past about doing projects,
Yeah.
and they were very excited about
Okay.
getting
Yeah.
involved. And their only limitation was, can they get the kids there and back, like in a school?
even, I mean, if we
Which they can.
prefab
They
this,
can
Dave,
drive and do work and get back to
we
school.
can have them prefab it at the
Yeah.
school,
Yeah,
and
no,
then take it all apart and put it on a truck and
Right.
bring it if they
Right.
can't come here, but,
but that was really their
Yeah.
only concern, was just,
yeah.
can they physically get the kids where they need to get and back
Yeah.
during the school day? Which they could easily.
When Titanbahn came up, and we did the walkthrough initially, they were gonna do core samples.
For some reason, we need to put our mics real close today, sorry.
Okay, when Titanbahn came over and did the walkthrough, we cited areas where they were gonna take core samples, or, did they find the initial area where we discussed having the bridge, those core samples were acceptable or were not acceptable?
So there was nobody at the meeting that could really read that. I don't know if I sent the report out to everybody, but that's one of the questions we're gonna ask Catherine Laurent. The way the report really didn't address that, what it said was they didn't want to build upon the dike,
Right.
right? Because that wasn't structurally
Because-
sound, but I don't think that was our idea. I think the idea was
Was
to
ahead.
build right next to it.
Right next to it.
Head of the dike. And I would think that was their primary objective, was to take the core samples.
Right.
And then they came up with their plan, which blew me away.
Right, and it.
They didn't address
In the
the,
report, it really,
questions.
I don't know, we're eventually gonna have a phone conference with them too, because I interpreted the plan that they were more concerned, it wasn't the core samples that had determined the site of the bridge, it was the quality of the wetlands.
Right.
But again, we're doing it in cooperation with the Conservation Commission on their own land. So, we should be able to decide this kind of in-house with the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
But good point.
Yeah.
Don't let me forget.
I was wondering if you had considered reaching out to maybe, a higher learning institution like Bridgewater Community College or UMass or something to help with the design and things as well. It might be a way to do a cooperative
Right,
effort.
because it looks like the plans from the federal government, it's all detailed, and it looks like it's almost like modular, like you just are able to build it on, but we are gonna need designed plans that fit the specifications of,
Don't the government have the plan? You
Yeah.
can
they
send
have the
them.
plans, but they're like a standard length.
Yeah.
So let's say we did get the Voc Tech to agree to build it, we'd have to give them plans that were dimensioned out to our bridge. And, yeah, you could get, hopefully, we could get some, a class that's, studying
Yeah.
structural engineering to do
What-
that as a
what-
project.
what-
The engineers
Before
will
you,
have to
before you
sign
get
off.
to that point, though, you need to know where that bridge is gonna sit and where the abutments will be.
Right, so then you know what to build.
Once you've established the point of where the two resting points will be, the design of the bridge is gonna be based on that, what the
Right.
span is and the width. So you really need to focus in on exactly where those points are going to be. Decide what that is, if you need more cores to determine what the soils are like to get it suitable. The type of anchorage which Ty and Bond had in their plan, I believe is suitable.
The screw.
They had the screw anchors, and it was capped with a concrete
Yep.
cap on the top.
But-
That's a good support, because it reduces the amount of impact in wetlands, which means that you can pull that closer toward the actual stream bed without impacting the ground a great deal, so you don't get sediment travel into the river and so forth. And you can adjust the height according to what you want. And very simple construction. Once you get the cap done and you've got the 2 points set, now you know the span between them. You just pull a tape, and measure it, and you know what you're gonna have. But design engineer who will detail the span and how the trusses go together or whatever deck goes on, that becomes a part of it. But you need to isolate that first to know exactly where you're gonna put them.
And we didn't have Drew in the room with us, but we did talk about, the Conservation Commission. They need to approve, like, where the footings would be and all of that stuff. They don't
Yep.
necessarily have to approve the structure of the bridge.
No Army Corps engineer though, right? It's near water. Will they come in?
I believe if you were working in the waterway, you would have to.
All right,
But this is outside that.
that would be.
I don't know, I thought stream crossings were covered under the Army Corps,
I thought
It's
they
been a
were.
while since I've looked at them, David, you may be right.
I believe, Army Corps.
I bet there's gonna be a notification and a waiver or request or something like that.
If you were actually putting a structure in the stream bed, you might have to either get involved with them and/or Division of Waterways. But,
So that's where Drew comes in.
yeah, if you're
'Cause
spanning it,
Drew deals
He knows
with
all that.
reviews all those permits.
if you're not obstructing the flow of the water and it's beyond where it could have any impact, I don't think that it'll be that much of a deal. It's worth looking into.
No, but that was on my
Army
rough
Corps,
checklist when we first started. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I believe there's a review.
all right.
Permitting process.
Yeah, that's right.
So Jen typed those notes up verbatim. That was a lot of information. That'll be our checklist. So that was kind of exciting, So we still have money. That's on my to-do list too, is to find out how much of the original CPA allocation we have left after the bit of engineering work that's been done thus far. So, all right. Reports. Design Review Committee.
No meeting.
Community Preservation Committee, we meet the first Thursday of February, which I think is February 1st. February 1st, to vote on the warrant articles. to then submit them to the town manager's office. Environmental Oversight Committee.
Yeah, the single-use plastic bag ban
Yeah,
in effect.
I don't like that, but,
Yeah, it's in effect now.
oh yeah, 'cause I was Stop and Shop, the guy put my bag too heavy, broke 2 bottles. I was mad. I goes, son, you should only put 3 things in, not 10. You know, I wasn't paying attention, but I don't like them.
Oh,
Well, I remember back in the day, right, people double bagged everything,
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, you double bag them, but
But then, I mean, back
I'm
in the
gonna bring
day.
you the best reusable bags, Dennis.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you some. Although they say Market Basket.
Well, most brothers have the
well,
handy
we have a
bags
few
now.
that say Stop and Shop.
Do you have a few that say
Canvas
Stuff
and
and Shop?
Yeah. In fact, I think I have one that,
Actually, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, 4-H gives away a lot of that kind of thing. They have the bags and,
My wife got a bunch of them
anyways, they're
bags.
involved in all the recycling stuff, but I know they
yeah, in fact, I think I
always
got,
give it away.
The problem is like remembering to bring them into the supermarket
Right,
with you,
right, well, that's the problem there.
yeah. In fact, I have one that says Luke's.
Now,
Yeah.
is it Cape Wide yet? I think Yarmouth is.
Falmouth's there.
Yeah, Falmouth's been there a
Yarmouth,
while.
Barnstable,
There's a number of them now.
yeah,
Everybody seems to,
Mashpee,
in fact, Boston, they gave it a year,
Yeah.
I guess.
to transfer,
Well, I think we did too. but-
transition
Yeah.
into it, wow.
And we had a little discussion on the Greenway.
Oh, yeah?
Good,
Yeah.
good,
So,
okay.
very similar, you know, that, so that was picking the site and whatever, for the bridge and then at your meeting that was going to be held an hour before
Mhm.
our meeting. Estuary restoration, shellfish, they're gonna be planting 10 million oysters
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
in the bay, the 1,000-pound bags. It's just beyond me.
I know they're small, but still,
Yeah, 20,000 bags out
it's
there.
amazing.
So, and stormwater management, the bloom at Santuit Pond is subsiding. And
This is
they
awesome
figured
weather.
they would be good
So
condition,
that's what happens.
would be in good condition if we don't get a lot of heavy rain,
Okay,
because I guess the drainage
Mm-hmm.
and on the conservation report, Charles River restoration, and I got this later, because she didn't have all the information. The town will be advertising for leasing a parcel of land known as the Charles River Conservation Land in the Mass Central Registry in the Mashpee Enterprise.
mhm,
For a 20-year lease with an option for another 10 years to conduct habitat restoration on a parcel.
wow.
Yeah. And then in the Upper Quashnet, I guess they were doing well until a lawyer got involved with the Air Force and he's questioning the funding. So I'm not going to bother reading all of it, but it says a representative from the AFC-EC is traveling to Houston in 2 weeks to meet directly with the attorneys at the Air Force Contracting Center to try to straighten out the situation. So now the lawyers are involved.
Gee, you know,
All we need
considering.
is a shovel.
I
They
know.
just want to make money, you know, that's all.
So is that part of the grant that the conservation
Y- yes.
department got? They
Yeah,
got a
what
big
happened is
grant.
they got a grant for $840,000. And everything seemed to be marching along, and then they brought in a lawyer. But it says according to Drew now, Drew says we have submitted a copy of a signed agreement between the Air Force and the town. Now, they had already agreed upon this. And saying that the Air Force was responsible for restoring any adverse impact from the berm subsidence / failure. And the lawyers stepped in and said, questioned it. So it's going to take a little getting used to, I guess.
Certainly delay things.
Historic District Commission,
No meeting.
MMR Military Civilian,
No meeting.
Cape Cod Commission.
Only thing I have to report really is, at our last meeting, Paul Nidzwicki
Retired.
said that he's stepping down. He's taken another job, that he couldn't pass up. That was a
Weymouth, right?
opportunity that he was kind of looking forward to transitioning over to. And they did name the interim person to take his place. It's an internal staffer that's been there for quite a long time, and she's going to be taking over.
Patty Daly?
Was that the name? I'd have to defer
Wow.
the notes. It is internal, though.
Wow,
Okay,
that's,
I'm not sure, but that sounds familiar.
Patty Daly is like the chief planner.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Are
He's
those
going up to
elected,
Weymouth.
Positions?
Not those positions.
No. Okay. Who appoints them?
The delegates are town appointees. The tribal, I'm appointed as a tribal representative.
So
The
each-
governor has a appointee, but then each town has a delegate.
There's the commissioners,
Okay.
which you're part of the Cape Cod Commission. Right, okay. And do you know if they hire the executive director?
The executive directors are, I forget how it's structured. There's one appointee from the commission. They can appoint, as the chair, he can appoint one person, and then the chair sits on it. I'm not sure how the executive staff is structured after that, though. That I'm not positive.
But the delegates are not holding chair positions. They're just kind of
There's the
The
assembly of
chair of
delegates.
The chair of the Cape Cod Commission, Assembly of Delegates, he's a sitting member on the executive.
but everybody else is kind of hired.
And then as the chair, he can nominate another commissioner as well, from what I understand.
That must be up to the delegates to vote them in or out, I wonder. Because it's not who pays that, the commission. You know, is it the 3 men? You know,
And then you have the county commissioners.
Yeah, the county
which is
commissioners.
above the
Commissioners and then
executive
the
direct-
assembly of delegates.
yeah.
Right. Well,
But somebody has to hire them.
the
Well, we'll find out.
county commissioners oversee the executive officers.
Yeah.
Okay.
They kind of guide the principles of the commission and directions they're going to go with
Okay.
bylaws and stuff. If there's changes going to be made, it would be presented through the executive committee, and then the delegates would vote on it as a commission. But the county commissioners have veto power over ordinances and such.
All right.
So did Paul give a date that is it within a month?
I believe so.
Wow. Okay, that's big news.
He was reluctant, but
Well, yeah, he's
he
worked
said,
hard.
he said he really liked the job proposal that he was looking at.
Yeah, that's a big place he's going up to.
Weymouth.
The naval base, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
For
it's
design.
Well, they've been,
building that for, now it's starting to really pick up. A lot of
yeah,
work.
they had a lot of trouble in the beginning.
Yeah.
Start.
Okay, thank you. Correspondences, there should be some discharge monitoring data coming in from South Cape Village.
It hasn't come in a while, I'm surprised.
So, do you know who used to send them in?
Well, the last one's October, so we should have
Like,
another
maybe
one.
you could look at an old one and call them and make sure they know, to send them to your attention
I
now.
thought it was automatic, wasn't
Yeah.
Maybe they came in by email. I don't know.
Do they send to the Board of Health too?
Yeah,
Yes,
so,
the Board of Health,
yeah.
maybe.
because we should have a few more.
Yeah.
Then there's waterway licenses. I don't have any additional topics. Anybody else have anything to say?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
On favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good job, everybody.